Hey everybody, it's Corey once again, and I am here to talk about my time at the Boston Fan Expo 2019. This one probably won't be as crazy long, and probably in some people's opinions unnecessarily long compared to others. I didn't see as many people at this one as I usually see at others, but the main thing is I got to see the people that I mainly wanted to see. And that's why I'm making this video, to tell you about it. Okay, so first, before I show you the autographs, I will start off with the first person I went to see. I went to a piece of his Q&A panel, heard all kinds of touching stories from fans about how this guy's work helped people out of depressions and possible suicide attempts. You may know him best as Shazam, actory, actory, getting a little too ahead of myself. I'm starting to combine names. Actor Zachary Levi, which I officially found out today that's how it's pronounced, because some people I've heard them say Levy, and I've heard Levi, but if he says it's Zachary Levi, then it should be Zachary Levi. But he was very friendly with all the fans that I saw him interact with. Definitely not one of those usual 1-2 word answers, okay, next kind of guys. It's not at all what he is. Because I'm going to go on a light tangent. Kind of like how he was with answering some of the questions. But he did tangents in a good way. But yeah, my light tangent is I've been to quite a few Q&A panels, and I can understand some questions can be a little bit repetitive for some people. But I think some people need to give answers that don't come off as rude necessarily, but come off as heavily rehearsed. Like, for example, John Carpenter. Like, I can only imagine how many times he's been asked, did you ever think Halloween would become a classic? Or, if you never directed Halloween, do you think you'd be the director that you are today? And he'd reply with the typical answers, but sometimes he'd mix in very harsh sarcasm. And I know that kind of humor is subjective for some people. And then there are the ones who don't mind going into the stories again, like George A. Romero. May he rest in peace. It's another reason why I really miss the guy, because even if you've already heard the story, it's always fun to hear it from him in person. Even when you watch interviews with him, though, it still kind of feels like you're one-on-one with him. I got that same feeling with both sides. And then there are people like with Robert Englund, how he, especially for the past almost decade, has been asked about the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which was produced by Michael Bay and his Platinum Dunes company. Like, it's a very rehearsed answer. I know he probably doesn't mean to have it come off that way, but I'm sure it's getting a bit much for him, even though I'm sure he appreciates it when people call him the Freddy Krueger, or just, you are Freddy Krueger. Yeah, but I could tell he's trying not to let that get to his head too much, because I think the last thing that he is a conceited person. Like, he's very humble. And then there are some people, when you ask them questions, they're just very straightforward and like they answer your question, but it's very, very brief. Like last year when I asked Billy D. Williams about what would he have done with his portrayal of Two-Face, he just said to me, and it was very honest and very nice about it, but I just wish he had more of an answer. He said, I stopped thinking about that a long time ago, which the main thing I was glad to hear with that was at least he's not bitter about not being asked to come back to play Two-Face. Even though I honestly would have loved that. Would have loved seeing him as Two-Face. Then you got some people like Zachary Levi, such as Lachlan Monroe, who gives big, long stories about behind-the-scenes stuff for various movies. Like, even though I'm going to go into more details in another video talking about meeting Lachlan Monroe, he said in pretty much every single movie that I asked him about, I could tell, like, if I wanted him to, he most likely would have given me a day-by-day synopsis of how it was working on that specific movie. Good or bad, but thankfully I happened to ask him about movies that I think he's for the most part proud of. But back to Zachary Levi, it's just him trying to become a bit of a spokesperson for people with depression and anxiety. I thought that was very sweet, especially coming from someone like me, someone who suffers lightly from anxiety. I think mainly that some of that has to do with the autism. But I'm good for right now. Like, I don't feel that anxious, at least lately. But I just thought it was very sweet to hear him talk about that, and it was funny hearing him talk a bit about how he'd be all for a live action remake of Tangled. And then but he would say that he wouldn't be right to play him live action, that character, because he feels, well, that character should be like 24 or 25. I don't know Zach Levi's age, but he's probably like in his mid-30s. I mean, I'm just guessing. I may be wrong. I'll probably look it up after I record this. And it was funny to hear some people immediately refer to him, like the kids who ask some questions. The kids saying, "Hey, Mr. Sparkle Pants" or "Sparkle Fingers." I thought that was very sweet and very touching. I mean, it's typical little kid cutesy wootsy stuff, but in this case, though, I thought it was rather sweet. And then when I went up to him, and you'll see these pictures at the end of the video, not just of him, but the other people I'm going to mention, I waited for quite a while in his line, but it ended up being worth it in the end. I wish I could have tried to talk to him a little bit more, but some of the people that were in front of me, and I'm sure some people that were behind me, were pretty pissed off that he was gone for a while. But his schedule was weird at that show. But got the picture with him. Quickly told him what I wanted to tell him. I said, by the way, one of my all-time favorites is Spiral, which was a movie he did that starred Joel David Moore, him, Amber Tamblyn, and featured a brief little appearance from Trisha Helfer. I almost said Halfer. Trisha Helfer. Sorry, that almost sounded like I was doing a pun because she also happens to be on Lucifer. But he was nice. He has this contagious smile that like instantly swiped away my light frustration with the long wait we had to go through. But this stuff happens at conventions. Like, yeah, you gotta brush it off. But now to the main stuff that I got. The guests that were announced that made me want to go to this show, because I originally wasn't planning on going. I was planning on 2018 being my last year for this show, but pretty much what I decided is if there are any interesting guests, I'll go. But if there's no one that really grabs my interest, I'll pass. But in this case, as you'll see, not just with Zach Levi, but with the others, there were a good amount that I was interested in meeting. The cast that reunion that they were putting together that I wanted to see was Boy Meets World. Ben Savage, Corey Matthews, Danielle Fishel. Is it Fishel or Fisher? I think it's Fishel. Who played Topanga. Ryder Strong, who played Sean. William Daniels, who played Mr. Feeney. And Will Friedle, or Friedel, I think it's Friedel, who played Eric Matthews. Yeah, they were going to be there. I mean, first it was just Will, Ben, Ryder, and Danielle that were announced, and then few weeks before the show came along, they announced William Daniels. And I was like, well, I gotta at least see him out of the cast. Yeah, there were some other people I wanted to see too that sadly had to cancel, but that's just how it is. Like, I was able to brush it off. I wanted to see Michael Rosenbaum again, especially after hearing Zach Levi's thing and talking about his trying to be a motivational speaker for people with depression and anxiety. I wanted to tell Michael Rosenbaum about how his words of comfort and wisdom at the Rhode Island Comic Con, which hopefully you guys have seen before this, but in case you hadn't, that's alright. Only look at it if you want. I'm not forcing anyone. But he helped me out of a depression, just like Zach Levi's work helped people out of their depressions. At least the people that I heard about, and made me happy to hear that, like I said earlier. But I think Michael Rosenbaum mainly canceled because Tom Welling canceled due to a scheduling conflict with filming. And I'm like, well, I just look at it as almost like the Freddie Prinze Jr. and Matthew Lillard thing, where it's like if one cancels, the other one's got to cancel too, because it's like no one likes Michael Rosenbaum more than Tom Welling, or no one likes Matthew Lillard more than Freddie Prinze Jr. But I think I'm one of those few cases or examples that prefers Matthew Lillard over Freddie Prinze Jr. or Michael Rosenbaum over Tom Welling. Those two guys are funny mofos. Trying to keep it PG for certain audiences who may be watching this. But they're good guys. Then Patrick Warburton canceled, and I would have loved to have talked with him, not just about Joe Swanson, but about his show that sadly got canceled rather prematurely, called Crowded, which I really loved. It also had Stacy Keach, Miranda Cosgrove, and other people that I don't know, but they were really good as well in the cast. Yeah, speaking of Stacy Keach, if he ever comes along to something, I'd love to ask about Batman Mask of the Phantasm. How I'm going on tangents like him. That's funny. That kind of must have brushed off onto me. But, like with Michael Rosenbaum, I was able to eventually brush off Patrick Warburton canceling, but still it lightly hurts. But maybe next time, we'll see. And then, one person that really caught me by surprise, and I knew I had to see him as soon as he was announced, was Rob Schneider. A little bit pricey, but I'm willing to take the dive for someone like him. Especially since he's on the continuing to grow client list of my friend Dominic. Which, once again, I'm not sharing his last name. Because I don't want him being bugged by people being like, oh, can your friend get me this free thing or whatever? Because I'm no more special than the last person or the next person. I look at myself as equal as those other people. Then, alright, let's see. And pretty much what ended up happening was I was going to try to get pictures with all the Boy Meets World cast, but when I thought about it a couple days before the show, I was like, well, I do like the whole cast, but there's certain people I like more than others, so I had to pick and choose, which in the end I think kind of helped out. But I'll start with the first picture that I got signed. This is, and hopefully it appears well. These lamination things can be tricky. I got this from Will Friedle. I started becoming a fan of this show due to the direct-to-video movie that became an instant cult classic. Will Friedle as Batman Beyond. In case you can't read that, it says, "To Corey, I am Batman." Will Friedle. I mean, I know he doesn't say it like that, but still, I can't help but to kind of speak like Kevin Conroy whenever I say that line. And speaking of Kevin Conroy, I mentioned Kevin to Will and said to him how I was starstruck by him and how I wasn't able to really get all that I wanted out to him, but I said mainly what I had to say to him. But yeah, Will, even though he's known Kevin for years, he was like, I get starstruck when I'm still around him. I don't know if he was just saying that to make me feel better, but still, I thought that was sweet either way. And I was hoping this guy would have pictures from this movie. Because as much as I like these guys on Boy Meets World, still, I like to go the Bruce Campbell route. Because he said in an interview that when he goes to conventions, he likes to ask the various big names, or sort of big names, about smaller movies they've done, or less talked about movies that they've done. And honestly, I think that's one of the best things to do. I've done it with Brian O'Halloran and David Naughton on Brutal Massacre. Done it with Richard Mole and talking about his voice as Two-Face in Batman the Animated Series, and a few various others, and it worked out great. Like, they responded very well. They were like, no one's ever asked me about that movie, or I barely get asked about that show or movie. Thank you very much for mentioning it to me. And this guy, I think, kind of falls into that category, even though the girl that was with him said that she was like, I love that movie too. It's a nice choice that you picked there. Let's see what it. This is weirdly enough actually the first time I'm looking at this autograph, really. Corey, pancakes. I don't know if you can really get that, but it says pancakes. And Ryder Strong. Oh. the the party man. Sorry, I'm wasting your time with that, but it's just. But trust me, it says the party man. And then, thanks to some help from my parents who helped me get these done quicker than I would have been able to. Mom stood in line for me. And yes, you guys can make fun of me all you want. Mommy helped you shine out. Rob Schneider. To Corey, no more tip. I was hoping that he would have a snapshot of him going no, wait. That was like a little in-joke that my dad and I created over the years, because Home Alone 2 is one of our favorite sequels. And I mainly like it for the cast that's in the part of the hotel staff in that movie. And Rob Schneider said to me, without hesitation, that his favorite thing about working on Home Alone 2 Lost in New York was getting to work with Tim Curry. And I immediately was like, oh man, he's great. I love that guy. I briefly mentioned when I saw him there a couple years ago. And Rob told me something that I didn't really fully know about with Tim Curry. I knew that Tim Curry had a stroke and that it mainly went public and viral when he went to an award ceremony to accept his Lifetime Achievement Award, which, in my opinion, he wholeheartedly deserved. But Rob said to me that from what he was told, and I knew Tim Curry must have not been, people must not have tended help to him right away with the bad condition he was in when he first came back into the public eye. I mean, he's thankfully he's doing a lot better now. But Rob Schneider said to me that apparently it was 5 or 6 hours before medical help arrived. Yeah, because I did hear that, he was in his prestigious home in Los Angeles or somewhere in California. And Tim Curry really is one of those great examples of someone who is lucky to be alive. I mean, meeting him, even though it wasn't at this show, it was a different show, it was definitely one of the best honors of my life. It was amazing. Loved meeting him. Wish I could have talked to him a bit more, but it was great. Especially when he asked for my name and how he just extended his hand out. And for a guy who's paralyzed like him, he had a pretty good grip. But back to Rob Schneider. it was very nice to hear him say good things about Tim Curry, because for years there was like this whole, like, almost pretty much urban legend saying about how Tim Curry hated the Rocky Horror Picture Show, or hated fans of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And that's very far from the truth. Like, he loves all his fans, just like most of the people that I meet. And then, last but not least, I wouldn't know how to rank any of these people anyways, because everyone was great. The last one I got was Mr. Feeney himself, William Daniels. To Corey, William Daniels. He had some pretty good stuff at his table, like some really nice pictures from Boy Meets World, some candid shots of him and his wife, who the name escapes me right now, but she was in, as I've come to find out, she was one of the original cast members of Little House on the Prairie. She had like a little thing at the table. And then he had pictures from Knight Rider, and I didn't even know that he was the voice of Kit in that until like I really thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, that is him. And then he had a couple pictures from 1776, the musical based around the writing of the Declaration of Independence. I really was kind of tempted to say, waiting for the chirp, chirp, chirp of an eaglet being born, but I wasn't sure if that's something that he's heard too many times, where it's gone to the point of being old. But yeah, but also I don't want to come off as a fanboy. But he was pretty chill. I mean, getting up there in age, but he still seemed to really enjoy meeting the fans. And they allowed me to get a picture with him, just like with everybody else. And you'll see those at the end. Then, trying to remember if there's anything else. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But, yeah, it was kind of difficult to pick and choose, but money was kind of tight with me, and after seeing Zach Levi at that Q&A panel, I really felt I had to go up to him. Might have been my last chance to ask him about, to at least throw out Spiral to him, saying that it's one of my favorites. Just the only thing I didn't get out to him was that was my introduction to him. But in the case of Rob Schneider, I did tell him that Home Alone 2 Lost in New York was my introduction to him, which I think he thought was pretty cool. Yeah, he and Tim Curry were our actors that are from my earliest of memory. And I said that to one of the guys that was with Rob Schneider. Like I was saying, I remember when I was a kid, for years I could only call them the Home Alone 2 guys. And then when I finally found out their names, I was like, yes, I can actually call them by their names. But, yeah, with the Boy Meets World cast, I would have liked to have seen Ben and Danielle. But, yeah, nothing against their characters, but they've just never been my full-on favorites on the show. But maybe in the future, if they come around again, maybe I'll get a picture with them. Yeah, yeah, and especially since, to be honest, I haven't watched that show in quite a few years. I only remember a handful of episodes, but enjoying the show overall. I did order pretty much the complete series. Yeah, it was not a box set, but like DVDs of like seasons 1 through 7 from a great person on eBay. So I was like, okay, now I have them so I can watch them whenever I want. And I'll probably do that pretty soon, after I get off some other kicks in terms of like other shows that I'm binging on right now. But sorry if this kind of dragged on a bit in some parts, but wanted to make sure I got all the information out. Try to film these now as soon as I get home from the shows and the older conventions. Hopefully I'll get those recorded soon, just so those memories, if they disappear one day, at least they'll be on the digital video format, either online or on a flash drive for when I'm long gone, and my relatives and hopefully children that I have one day can watch them too. Thank you for watching, and take care, and later.
I love getting you that you write to a lot of your characters, especially some of the exotic ones. How many times when you're doing a scene with somebody else, you get into one of your characters and they just lose it as you're doing it?
What happens is it takes so much time to get to the set, to get the makeup on, and to have everything right, and the lights and everything, and then the last thing you want to do is blow a good take by laughing. I never broke on Saturday Night Live once. I never lost it and started laughing like Adam Sandler's done many, many times. But on a movie, I mean, you're just trying to, I mean, if it's going good, I mean, sometimes I've blown it in movies by not, by just, I can do better or whatever, but sometimes in the editing room, I go, oh, I should have just, it was fine the way it was. Don't edit while you're acting, you know? And don't direct while you're acting. You just gotta be in the role. And acting is being active, trying to get something from another actor. You have to stay in that. And if you sometimes lose that, you lose focus, you can lose a moment. Sometimes it's those little moments that happen. You know, if you guys get a chance to see a movie called The Chosen One, it's a dramatic movie that I did. There's just some really nice moments in there that I'm really proud of, and I'm glad I didn't overthink too much. Thank you. Yes.
Can you give us a trailer for Hubie's Halloween?
Sure. Can I just act it out for you? Basically, Adam is playing, he's trying, I'll tell you what, Adam Sandler is not trying to play the guy from The Waterboy, but it looks like it's very similar to the guy from The Waterboy. But you know, Mama said that, Mama did the dehydration. But it's very funny. Some of the stuff, and it looks beautiful. He's got a great cinematographer, and like Kevin James, Steve Buscemi, Ben Stiller, Maya Rudolph, Tim Meadows, and Ray Liotta, just to name a few, are in it. And it's a very good movie, and I hope it's going to come out next Christmas. Next Halloween. It's Halloween. If it comes out next Christmas, it'll be very confusing. Yes.
Hi. I actually wanted to say I really loved you with the hot chick.
Oh, thank you. It's me, Jessica. I'm in here. That's a movie that you can only make. You can't make it if you're no longer in your 30s. That movie. That's kind of it.
I did have a question. I don't know if you've ever seen Tu Wong Fu.
What is that again?
Tu Wong Fu.
What is that? I don't know what that is. Is that like a little kid show?
No.
Is that the Chinese director?
Patrick Swayze.
Oh no, I haven't seen that. No. Was that before or after The Hot Chick?
I don't remember actually.
It was way before it? No, I haven't seen it. It was way before? Is it Robert Downey Jr. in that too? Okay, I don't know that one.
It was John Leguizamo and Wesley Snipes. I was just wondering, out of those guys, do you actually think you could win a diva contest?
I don't know. I didn't see that movie, but I definitely know who wouldn't pay his taxes. Wesley Snipes. Well, I mean, he was in that. He went to jail. I'm not letting the cat out of the bag there. That's my buddy Monty. Monty, come up and say hi to everybody. Monty's in Real Rob. Come up and say hi to everybody. You got to explain your new movie. We're making a movie in Australia next year. This is going to be the star of it here. Monty, he's from Australia, so he kind of talks like that. And unfortunately for him, I do that accent to him every day since I've met him. See, that's the respect right there. Can you turn on mic number 1, please?
Hi everyone. How you doing? Okay, good talk. All right.
Come on, tell them the movie idea. See if you guys want to see this movie. First of all, it takes place in when?
Okay, so the movie we're making next year is a true story. This happened in the history of Australia. I'm not making this up. In 1932, the Australian government went to war with the emus. You guys know what an emu is? That's a large, bird, like an ostrich.
It's a true story.
This is a true story. There was 20,000 of these birds running through the outback and tearing up farmers' crops. So the army came in with tanks and machine guns and went to war with the emus. I'm not making this up. Please look it up. Now this is the best part. We lost.
It's a true story.
The birds were too fast. They got organized. They were doing laps, running around our army. So the whole story is about these 4 people who went out to fight 20,000 birds with guns and tanks and stuff and lost.
It's true. You look it up and you say like world battles, and it says, it'll say like, the Prussians and Germany, Axis powers against, Britain, and who won Britain, United States, whatever. And then you see like, World War II, Japan, America, who won America. And you go like 1932, Australian Army, and then the opponent, emus, and who won? Emus. It's a true story, absolutely true. So we're going to make that next year in Australia. So it'll be fun.
It is emu, by the way. I just want to get that out there as much as possible. Americans like to say emu.
Oh, we'll always
Incorrect.
Emu.
That is not correct.
Is that saying like instead of cow, coo, or something?
No, that's like saying to a French person who says, oh, it's croissant. You go, excuse me, it's croissant.
Yeah.
It's emu, like museum. Emu.
No.
All right, fine. Say emu. I don't care. Do whatever you want.
What's your question?
I was wondering if any of the on Saturday Night Live, any of your recurring characters, if you hated doing them, and I hope it wasn't the making copies one. So.
No, I like doing that one. I just didn't want to do too many. I hated when Al Franken kept doing his character all over and over again. That would seem like, I'm good enough, smart enough, and I've done this 1,000 times already. So that was annoying to me. But I only did like it 5 or 6 times. Because they only did 4 wild and crazy guys. I always thought like less is more. Leave them wanting more. Unlike sometimes, some comedians do.
Are you saying I should have left after my story?
No.
Still hanging around. Hey.
Hang out. No, but I enjoyed it. I like some of the stories we had. Some of the sketches were really funny ideas and good rhythms, but no endings. The one we did that like Adam Sandler and I still like. It's been 25 years. We still don't have an ending for it. Like you like the Jews, huh? You like. I get you more Jews, huh? You like the Jews. We had no ending. We did it twice. We still didn't have an ending for either sketch. You like the Jews. I get you more Jews. And then Chris Farley's like, you like the Jews. You like them. So, but it was fun. And, if it made you and your friends laugh, at least if nobody else laughed, at least it made you and your friends laugh.
I used the making copies on my voicemail or the phone recorder. So
All right.
I loved it. Thank you.
Okay, you could probably not using that machine anymore. Making copies.
Is there any actors that you really love to work with, or any actors you really hated to work with?
I don't like to talk negative about people, even though I just did about Al Franken. I don't like to talk. I just served that son of a character so many times. No, I mean, I like working with actors. Sometimes you work with somebody, and Christopher Walken was a guy. When every time he came in, you never know what you're gonna get, because he talked. The first thing he does when he takes script, he takes out the punctuation. So you never know when he's gonna stop. So I really liked him. And David Spade did a couple of movies with him, and I was jealous because I said, if I would have known he would have said yes, I would have put him in my Deuce Bigelow. Thanks, pal. This is the twin lady of the woman who just asked the question. What can I do for you?
Hi. I wanted to tell you, I'm going to take this slow so I get it right. What's amazing about you is simultaneously you can play a character who's a little off-kilter, who is lovable, and if they're the least bit stereotyped, we don't care.
Well, thank
Because
you.
you have the ability to make us love them.
Well, that's very kind of you. Appreciate it. I love that, except for the stereotype word. It's a very nice company. No, I just feel like there are some things you can say as a stereotype, but if somebody's doing it, if you do it with, try to make it funny. I will say this, why Adam Sandler's lasted so many years, and why I've been so grateful that, he's invited me to be part of that whole team and be part of that family, is there's no malice in there. There's not trying to make anybody feel bad, or it's trying to have fun and make people laugh, and hopefully make them laugh really hard. So thank you for that. So I want to thank you for having me today. I hope you do get a chance to hear the podcast, to see what happens. And then this movie's called The Great Emu War with Monty. And then the movie's coming out is The Wrong Missy with David Spade next April. And then Hubie Halloween, which is still filming. It's about 15 miles from here. The drive there is about 3 hours to get there, north of here. Marblehead. And we'll be doing that. That'll come out next October, Hubie Halloween. Thank you for your time.
And make sure to watch Real Rob on Netflix if you haven't seen it. First season and second season. You guys will love it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.